This audio production was made in collaboration with Audible Anarchist.
The Pittsburgh Manifesto. Manifesto of the International Working People's Association. To the Workingmen of America. Fellow workmen, the Declaration of Independence says, quote, "But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them, the people, under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security." End quote. This thought of Thomas Jefferson was the justification for armed resistance by our forefathers, which gave birth to our republic. And do not the necessities of our present time compel us to reassert their declaration? Fellow workmen, we ask you to give us your attention for a few moments. We ask you candidly to read the following manifesto issued in your behalf, in the behalf of your wives and children, in behalf of humanity and progress. Our present society is founded on the exploitation of the propertyless classes by the propertied. This exploitation is such that the propertied, capitalists, buy the working force, body and soul of the propertyless, for the price of the mere costs of existence, wages, and take for themselves, i.e. steal, the amount of new values, products, which exceeds this price, whereby wages are made to represent the necessities instead of the earnings of the wage laborer. As the non-possessing classes are forced by their poverty to offer for sale to the property their working forces, and as our present production on a grand scale enforces technical development with immense rapidity, so that by the application of an always decreasing number of human working forces, an always increasing amount of products is created, so does the supply of working forces increase constantly, while the demand, therefore, decreases. This is the reason why the workers compete more and more intensely in selling themselves, causing their wages to sink, or at least on the average, never raising them above the margin necessary for keeping intact their working ability. Whilst by this process the propertyless are entirely debarred from entering the ranks of the propertied, even by the most strenuous exertions, the propertied, by means of the ever-increasing plundering of the working class, are becoming richer day by day, without in any way being themselves productive. If now and then one of the propertyless class becomes rich, it is not by their own labor, but from opportunities which they have to speculate upon, and absorb the labor product of others. With the accumulation of individual wealth, the greed and power of the propertied grows. They use all the means for competing among themselves for the robbery of the people. In this struggle, generally, the less propertied, the middle class, are overcome, while the great capitalists, par excellence, swell their wealth enormously, concentrate entire branches of production, as well as trade and intercommunication into their hands, and develop into monopolists. The increase of products, accompanied by simultaneous decrease of the average income of the working mass of the people, leads to so-called business and commercial crises, when the misery of the wage workers is forced to the extreme. For illustration, the last census of the United States shows that after deducting the cost of raw material, interest, rents, risks, etc., the propertied class have absorbed, i.e. stolen, more than 5/8 of all products, leaving scarcely 3/8 to the producers. The propertied class, being scarcely 1/10 of our population, and in spite of their luxury and extravagance unable to consume their enormous profits, and the producers unable to consume more than they receive, 3/8, so-called overproductions must necessarily take place. The terrible results of panics are well known. The increasing eradication of working forces from the productive process annually increases the percentage of the propertyless population, which becomes pauperized and is driven to crime, vagabondage, prostitution, suicide, starvation, and general depravity. This system is unjust, insane, and murderous. It is therefore necessary to totally destroy it with and by all means, and with the greatest energy on the part of everyone who suffers by it, and who does not want to be made culpable for its continued existence by their inactivity. Agitation for the purpose of organization, organization for the purpose of rebellion. In these few words, the ways are marked, which the workers must take if they want to be rid of their chains, as the economic condition is the same in all countries of so-called civilization, as the governments of all monarchies and republics work hand in hand for the purpose of opposing all movements on the thinking part of the workers, as finally the victory in the decisive combat of the proletarians against their oppressors can only be gained by the simultaneous struggle along the whole line of the bourgeois capitalistic society. So therefore, the International Fraternity of Peoples, as expressed in the International Working People's Association, presents itself a self-evident necessity. True order should take its place. This can only be achieved when all implements of labor, the soil and other premises of production, in short, capital produced by labor, is changed into societary property. Only by this presupposition is destroyed every possibility of the future spoliation of man by man. Only by common, undivided capital can all be enabled to enjoy in their fullness the fruits of the common toil. Only by the impossibility of accumulating individual, private capital can everyone be compelled to work who makes a demand to live. This order of things allows production to regulate itself according to the demand of the whole people, so that nobody need work more than a few hours a day, and that all, nevertheless, can satisfy their needs. Hereby, time and opportunity are given for opening to the people the way to the highest possible civilization. The privileges of higher intelligence fall with the privileges of wealth and birth. To the achievement of such a system, the political organizations of the capitalistic classes, be they monarchies or republics, form the barriers. These political structures, states, which are completely in the hands of the propertied, have no other purpose than the upholding of the present order of exploitation. All laws are directed against the working people. Insofar as the opposite appears to be the case, they serve on one hand to blind the worker, while on the other hand, they are simply evaded. Even the school serves only the purpose of furnishing the offspring of the wealthy with those qualities necessary to uphold their class domination. The children of the poor get scarcely a formal elementary training, and this, too, is mainly directed to such branches as tend to producing prejudices, arrogance, and servility. In short, want of sense. The church, finally, seeks to make complete idiots out of the mass, and to make them forego the paradise on earth by promising a fictitious heaven. The capitalistic press, on the other hand, takes care to the confusion of spirits in public life. All these institutions, far from aiding in the education of the masses, have for their object the keeping in ignorance of the people. They are all in the pay and under the direction of the capitalistic classes. The workers can therefore expect no help from any capitalistic party in their struggle against the existing system. They must achieve their liberation by their own efforts. As in former times a privileged class never surrendered its tyranny, neither can it be expected that the capitalists of this age will give up their rulership without being forced to do it. If there ever could have been any question on this point, it should long ago have been dispelled by the brutalities which the bourgeoisie of all countries, in America as well as in Europe, constantly commits, as often as the proletariat anywhere energetically move to better their condition. It becomes, therefore, self-evident that the struggle of the proletariat with the bourgeoisie must have a violent revolutionary character. We could show by scores of illustrations that all attempts in the past to reform this monstrous system by peaceable means, such as the ballot, have been futile, and all such efforts in the future must necessarily be so for the following reasons. The political institutions of our times are the agencies of the propertied class. Their mission is the upholding of the privileges of their masters. Any reform in your own behalf would curtail these privileges. To this they will not and cannot consent, for it would be suicidal to themselves. That they will not resign their privileges voluntarily, we know. That they will not make any concessions to us, we likewise know. Since we must then rely upon the kindness of our masters for whatever redress we have, and knowing that from them no good may be expected, there remains but one recourse: force. Our forefathers have not only told us that against despots force is justifiable, because it is the only means, but they themselves have set the immemorial example. By force, our ancestors liberated themselves from political oppression. By force, their children will have to liberate themselves from economic bondage. It is therefore your right, it is your duty, says Jefferson, to arms. What we would achieve is therefore plainly and simply, first, destruction of the existing class rule by all means, i.e., by energetic, relentless, revolutionary, and international action. Second, establishment of a free society based upon cooperative organization of production. Third, free exchange of equivalent products by and between the productive organizations without commerce and profit-mongery. Fourth, organization of education on a secular, scientific, and equal basis for both sexes. Fifth, equal rights for all, without distinction to sex or race. Sixth, regulation of all public affairs by free contracts between the autonomous, independent communes and associations, resting on a federalistic basis. Whoever agrees with this ideal, let him grasp our outstretched brother hands. Proletarians of all countries, unite! Fellow workmen, all we need for the achievement of this great end is organization and unity. There exists now no great obstacle to that unity. The work of peaceful education and revolutionary conspiracy well can and ought to run in parallel lines. The day has come for solidarity. Join our ranks. Let the drum beat defiantly the roll of battle. Workmen of all lands unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. You have a world to win. Tremble, oppressors of the world. Not far beyond your purblind sight, there dawns the scarlet and sable lights of the Judgment Day.
This has been a production of Audible Anarchist. You can find more Audible Anarchist on YouTube.